Hi class, I thought I would give you a little bit extra on Module 1, Lesson 3. And I'm trying out some technology on you. I hope you don't mind. But let's see how this goes. Um, what we're going to talk about in this video are right here. I want to just kind of differentiate descriptive from inferential statistics, talk about experimental studies, and then talk about some sampling techniques. Okay, that's the three things I want to cover. So the first thing I want you to know is the difference between descriptive statistics and inferential. And just like the name sounds, like one of them just describes things, and then the second one, the inferential, it makes inferences. It tries to make judgments, like generalizations. And, I think what's really important to know is your data. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. If the data's not any good, then no matter what you do with it, it's not going to be significant. So, descriptive statistics is really what we're going to do in this class. We are going to take data and really analyze it. What is the data telling us? What's the average? What's the middle of the data? How far is it spread out? Those kinds of questions. Looking at the data, nobody's going to be able to dispute what we do because it's all mathematical. Now, inferential is when you kind of expand on that and start to make generalizations. And we're not going to do much of that. We'll do a little bit of it. But that's kind of where, statisticians make their money when they do that, that advanced inferential judgment-like statistics. So let's see if I can draw on this thing here. Let's say I have a population here. Oops. Okay, that was good first start, right? Okay, eraser. Let's try this pen. All right, remember, we have a population and we take a sample, right? In the book, by the way, they say that a sample is a numeric representation, or a statistic is a numeric representation of a sample. And what I tried to tell you in the last video, it's a calculation from sample data. It's not technically a calculation, it's a mathematical function. But think of it like that. Statistic. I've got sample data. I'm going to use that to make a calculation like an average. Okay? So if I take, let's say I have a class average on the test. Average is equal to 79%. Right? This number is a statistic. Okay? That number, 79, that calculation is a statistic. Maybe I take a sample of the population and I ask them a question, do you like SUVs? And I get 68% like that. 68% of the sample like SUVs. 68 is a statistic, okay? Inferential statistics, on the other hand, are it's when you make a judgment. Like if I got 68% of this sample likes SUVs, I could make a inference and say, well, out of this population here, the majority of them like SUVs. Okay, that would be an inferential statement. Okay. All right, so let's move down a little bit. Experimental studies. All right, what I want you to think of is I want you to think about statistics being scientific. And when you do a statistical study, you try to make it as scientific as you can. So I always, like I'm growing tomatoes. I'm going to try to grow tomatoes this summer. And let's say I was going to do an experiment on what's the best method. How would I do that? Well, I'd have to have, say I have two types of land, or two types of fertilizer. And I would give, like in my backyard, I would make sure all the tomato plants in there were the same kind. They each got the same amount of sunlight and water, and then I would put one fertilizer on one and maybe nothing on the other one, okay? Like, I really need to think of studies like that, in a scientific way. So if I'm trying to, make a statistical test on what's a good method to teach statistics, I can't just put a method out there, give it to you, and then see how you did. Well, maybe you would have done well anyway. Maybe this group this summer is just spectacular, and no matter what I did, it would have come out well. So you need to make it like scientific. No, I have to have two groups. And if you look down here, so I've got two types of studies. One's observational, where I just observe what happens. Maybe I would sit in a classroom and I would observe and see how many students were paying attention, or what the atmosphere was like. The other one would be experimental, where I'm really trying to make it as scientific as possible, right? Where I have two groups. One group got the old method, and the other one got the treatment group. Like, you can tell, like, I'm not very good drawing here. All right, but I would have two groups, and I would give one group the normal method, and the other group I would give like the special, curriculum, and then I could test the results that way. So it's really important to kind of think through things when you're trying to do a study. Okay, the treatment is some type of intervention. The book mentions placebo. Is that an intervention? Well, it is some kind of treatment, but it's not a real treatment. Like, if I had a control group that I didn't do anything to, that's not the same as a placebo. A placebo is like a medication that really has no effect. Okay, I want to make that clear because there's kind of a question on the test that deals with that. So, all right, let's go to the last part, sampling techniques. There's 5 of them here. You can download this sheet. I'll put this sheet out there. Okay, and I'm going to run through these. So there's random sample, systematic, stratified, clusters, and convenience sampling. And I want to talk about each one of those. Random is just where, okay, I've got a group of people and I pick 5 of them randomly. Every person has the same chance of being picked. Okay, that's a random sample. Sometimes you hear a simple random sample right here. Kind of like that eraser because it doesn't leave a mark on here. Okay. Simple random sample is when each sample of the same size has an equally likely chance of being picked. In other words, if I pick 5 students out of the class, each group of 5, there are many different ways that I could pick 5 people, in that, I could have 3 men and 2 women. They would be different than if I took another random sample and it would be the first 5 people in the class. A simple random sample just means that each group of 5, or whatever sample size you have, has the equally likely chance of being picked. You don't have to worry too much about that, but I thought I should point that out. All right, that's a random sample. Systematic sample is just like you come up with a method, like every 3rd person in the class gets picked, or everyone state a number and every even person. Remember how you used to do that in school, or like grade school, when you would pick teams and you would each pick a number, and each person with the same number, they would be on the same team. So systematic sample is like that, like every 3rd person. All right, and so now we got 3 more. Stratified sample. Stratified sample is used when it's important that every segment of the population is represented. So I should say a few things here. Let's see. I don't know what I just did there. Let's see if I can go back. All right. Let's try that again. Okay. So let's say I've got, I don't know, This is Northern Kentucky, let's say, and my study has to do with maybe with taxes or something financial. So one way I could divide up this group is by income. Let's say these are the super rich people, and then I've got like kind of the next group. They've got $3 signs, and then maybe got the middle class, and they're the biggest group here. And then I've got the lower income people here. All right. So think about this. This population. Let me get that eraser back up here. This population here is divided up by the researcher into these segments. I mean, if you looked at everyone in the entire population, they wouldn't have these imaginary lines. You know, people are just individuals, right? But my study has to do with taxes, so I'm going to fictitiously make these divisions. And why am I going to do that? Here's why. Like, the reason that you try to make a representative sample is because you're going to use that sample to predict the population parameter, right? So the sample, it's important how you get the sample, because that's what you're going to study. Okay, so so what do you do to get your stratified sample? These little divisions here, these divisions are called strata, like little segments, right? Segments. And you're going to take a random sample from this one, a random sample from this one, and this one, and you're going to put them all into one group, and that's going to be your stratified sample, right? And the proportion that is in this group is going to be related to how big these groups are to begin with. Like, this little sample here is going to have more of these middle class people than it will of the ultra rich, okay? Because that's what's reflective in the population. And so this is called a stratified sample. You can think of it as each segment is represented, although not everyone in each segment is represented. Like, you're just going to take a sample of each one of these segments, okay? Not the whole group of this group is going to be in here, just some of them. But every one of these segments is going to be represented. Now think about this. If you just took a random sample from here, you might not get any of these people in there. Or maybe this is a group of minorities, and like you have a small group over here, but you want to include them. And by stratifying the sample first and picking from each of the groups, you're going to include them. They might not be the most represented, like they don't have as many people in the sample as these, but they will be there. And that's why you stratify the sample. All right. The next one here is a cluster sample. And I want to say that this happens when the population is kind of already grouped. All right, now this is going to be rough. So that's Texas there, and this is Florida come down. I'm trying to draw the U.S. I think Michigan pops up somewhere like this, and we go over like this, all right? Lame, but you got the idea. I use the example of like retail stores. Let's say TJ Maxx's. Like there's these TJ Maxx's all across the country. All right, and so in this population, there's little groups here, and so I want to do a study on my stores. Maybe I'm the president. I want to know what's going on. So since I've already got these groups here, I don't necessarily want all of these groups represented, but I want every department in the groups that I look at represented. So I might take, like, let's say I randomly take this one that's in the West, and then I want one kind of in the Midwest, and then I want one in the Southeast and the Northeast, right? So I kind of want the population represented by region. Okay, but I'm not going to. So I picked the 4 out of. You know how many stores TJ Maxx has? Take a guess. In the U.S., there are more than 1,000. All right, so that's a lot. That's a lot, right? It's going to be very costly if I want to include all of those. So I'm going to pick just a few of them, but the ones that I pick, I'm really going to investigate. All right, so I'm going to look at the marketing department, the maintenance department, the retail sales, the cashiers, the managers. So I'm going to pick these, and these are clusters, right? This is why this is cluster sampling. All right, so there's groups. Not every group is represented, but everyone in the group is represented. Does that make sense? Not all the groups are represented, but everyone in the group is represented. That's cluster sampling. All right, this last one here is a convenience sampling, and that's just an easy to get sample. It'd be like, okay, I want to know what Gateway students think or KCTCS students think about online classes. And I just pick you, and I send you a survey. Well, that sample is not really representative of Gateway. I mean, a lot of people don't like statistics. A lot of people won't even have to take it. So I'm limiting the type of people in my survey. A lot of people don't take summer classes, so that makes you different from a lot of others. So anyway, that's not a good idea. Convenient. It'd be like saying I'm going to interview people on what their favorite fast food restaurant is, and I would go out in the street and find the first 10 people. That's not a good representative sample of the population. Right? One of the common uses of convenience sampling were prisons, where you had access to a group of people and you could modify it. You can imagine you could do an experiment with a control group and a treatment. The treatment group could have less sleep or more activities than the other. Like, it was very convenient for the researcher to manipulate things because they had full control of the prisoners, and that's pretty much unethical and not allowed. But all right, so that's section 3. I hope this helps you. I'm trying to learn how to do this. I'm going to try to put another video out before the week's over on the test, just very short, to try to make sure that we touch all the bases before we take it. But anyway, I hope this helped you. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. All right, thank you.